The boy stood at the edge of the marble ballroom, barefoot on a floor that reflected chandeliers worth more than his entire life. His clothes simple, his posture calm, his eyes steady, while across the room a millionaire father sat rigid, beside his daughter's wheelchair, surrounded by doctors who had failed him, therapists who had given up, and guests who whispered pity behind crystal glasses. And when the music softened and the crowd thinned, the boy stepped forward and said the words that froze the air. "Let me dance with your daughter. I'll make her walk again." And laughter rippled, sharp and cruel, because hope had become a dangerous thing in this room, because the girl had not stood in 3 years since the accident that shattered her spine and her father's faith at the same time. And yet the boy did not flinch when guards moved toward him, or when the father's voice cut through the hall like a blade, demanding to know who had invited a dreamer to mock a broken miracle. And the boy answered quietly that he had not come to mock but to remember. That movement lived first in belief and rhythm before it lived in bone and muscle. And something in the girl's eyes shifted, a spark long buried under pain and polite smiles. And she whispered that she wanted to try just once, before the world decided for her again. And the father, a man who owned hospitals yet could not buy hope, hesitated, because letting her try meant letting her fail in front of everyone. But love finally outweighed fear, and the boy placed one hand gently in hers and one behind the chair, the music rising slow and soft, and he did not pull her up, did not rush, but began to sway, guiding her breath, counting softly, reminding her body of patterns it had not forgotten. And as minutes passed, something extraordinary happened, not a miracle yet, but a rebellion. As her fingers tightened, her shoulders lifted, and tears streamed down her face, because for the first time in years she felt herself participating in life instead of watching it. And the room fell silent as the boy whispered, "This is not about standing tonight. This is about believing tomorrow." And somewhere deep inside the father, something long dead stirred. And if you feel that stirring too, if stories of courage and impossible hope move you, remember to subscribe now, because this journey is only beginning. The next night the ballroom was gone, replaced by a quiet rehabilitation hall where no cameras waited and no applause could save them. And the boy returned not as a performer, but as a promise. And the millionaire father watched from the shadows as routines began, breath before movement, rhythm before strength, patience before progress, and days turned into weeks where nothing seemed to change, except the girl's determination. And there were nights she screamed in frustration, and mornings she wanted to quit. And each time the boy reminded her that healing was not a straight line, but a conversation between the body and the will. And slowly, almost invisibly, muscles responded, nerves remembered, and fear loosened its grip. And the father, once obsessed with control, learned humility as he watched his daughter fight battles money could not win for her. Until one ordinary afternoon, without music or audience, she pushed down through her arms, her legs trembling violently, and she stood only for seconds, only barely, but enough to shatter every doubt that had ruled their lives. And the boy stepped back, refusing credit, saying the miracle was never his hands, but her courage. And when the day finally came that she walked across the same marble floor where she had once been pitied, the father knelt and wept, not because she walked, but because he understood that hope is activated when we choose to believe in people before proof appears. And the boy disappeared as quietly as he arrived, leaving behind a family healed beyond medicine, and a lesson for anyone watching that faith, persistence, and human connection can resurrect what the world declares finished. And if this story touched your heart, if you believe in strength beyond limits and miracles born from courage, subscribe to this channel now, because stories like this don't just entertain, they remind us who we are. After that first unsteady stand, nothing moved fast. And that was the hardest lesson of all, because miracles that matter rarely arrive with thunder. They arrive with repetition, with sweat soaking through bandages, with silent tears falling onto cold floors at dawn. And the girl learned to greet pain not as an enemy but as a signal that something dormant was waking up, while the boy adjusted nothing except her belief, reminding her again and again that the body listens carefully to the stories we tell it. And when doubt crept in, as it always did, he made her sit, breathe, and remember the night she danced without standing, because movement had begun there, not in her legs but in her mind. And the father watched these small rituals with a strange mix of terror and reverence, realizing that for years he had tried to save his daughter by shielding her from struggle, when what she needed was permission to fight. And so he stopped interrupting, stopped demanding reports, stopped asking doctors for timelines, and instead learned to wait, to hope quietly, to celebrate inches instead of miles, until one morning she took a step without realizing it, her foot sliding forward as naturally as a memory returning home. And she laughed and cried at the same time, and the boy said nothing, because some moments are too sacred for words. And news of her progress spread not through headlines, but through whispers, through nurses who paused to watch, through patients who found courage in her trembling victories. And when she finally walked unaided for the length of the hall, the father felt something heavier than pride settle in his chest, gratitude for the boy who had asked for nothing, for the daughter who had refused to surrender, and for the truth he now understood, that healing is not given, it is chosen daily, painfully, bravely. And when the girl returned to the ballroom months later, not as an exhibit of recovery, but as a young woman reclaiming her life, the music played again, softer this time, and she stood alone at the center, eyes closed, feet grounded, and she danced, not for proof, not for applause, but for herself, and the boy was nowhere to be found, as if his purpose had been fulfilled the moment she no longer needed him, leaving behind a legacy invisible yet unbreakable. And as the father looked around at faces filled with awe instead of pity, he understood that wealth builds rooms, but belief builds futures. And if you're watching this story and feel that quiet fire inside you, the one that says, "Don't give up yet," then stay with this channel, subscribe, and walk with us through more stories that remind you that even when life tells you to sit down forever, courage can still teach you how to stand again.